Lanka. And Ranil Wickremesinghe is being elected as the new president of a crisis-ridden Sri Lanka. Students, we all know that Sri Lanka is undergoing a severe economic crisis. Its balance of payment has dipped, its foreign exchange reserves has dipped to such an extent that it cannot sustain for long. It's undergoing severe economic crisis. It has very less economic reserves that it cannot import commodities, from the foreign nations. Under these situations, people protested against the Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who was the earlier president of Sri Lanka, or the erstwhile or the ousted president of Sri Lanka, who resigned along with Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Right. So it was kind of a family-run government which was there in Sri Lanka. All the Rajapaksa brothers at the presidency, prime ministerialship, as well as in the cabinet. Now, after the protests, which forced the Rajapaksa family to resign from the office, the new elections, the new announcement to elections were being made. And mind you, the strength of the Sri Lankan parliament is 225. It's 225. And to form the government, you have to have half of the total, right? So that means the half is 114. Right? Now, in the present election, Ranil Wickremesinghe, who was, six-time Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, and he was acting president after the resignation of Gotabaya Rajapaksa. He was an acting president. Now his party garnered the support from of 134 members of 225, and in this way his party is able to form the government, and he became the president of the country. Right? Now, before the run up to the elections, the presidential elections, he declared emergency in the country. Right? So therefore, there was an emergency in the country, a constitutional, even a political crisis, a constitutional crisis, and under such circumstances, uh, you know, and the reason that he said, gave while he imposed emergency was to safeguard the interest of the country and to protect the legislators, the lawmakers, because there are huge protests in Sri Lanka. Right now, as you can see, Ranil Wickremesinghe is standing outside the parliament in Colombo, and he is being elected as the next president of Sri Lanka. Right. Earlier, he was a acting president. I hope it is clear. Now, the closest opposition was being given by Dulas Alaha Peruma, and he was a Rajapaksa aligned member, and now definitely he is independent. Well, he comes from, you know, uh, uh, because people are again protesting, and they are not happy because they believe, and it is in fact a fact that that Vikram Sanghe has not entered into the parliament through election. Definitely, as a president, he has won through the process of election, but in the parliament of Sri Lanka, he has not entered through election because some seats in the Sri Lankan parliament are being reserved for party list PR system, and the remaining are being reserved for direct election. Right. So, for example, there are 225 seats in the parliament of Sri Lanka. There are some seats which are being reserved for direct elections, as we have in India, and there are some other seats, some percentage of seats out of 205 which would be reserved for party list PR system. Party list PR system means party list proportional representation system. In this way, it gives representation to various political parties, even if they are not able to form the majority. Right. So there are some percentage of seats out of 225 which are being reserved for party list proportional representation system, also called as national list. So Ranil Wickremesinghe does not come to the parliament through election, but he comes through party list PR system or the national list, right? And this is based on the party's vote share in 2020 general elections. Correct. So the party, the political party which he comes from is United Nations Party, right? And the UNP had a very good vote share in the 2020 general elections, and therefore he comes from the national list system or the party list proportional representation system, and not from the direct election. So that is something which you have to keep in mind. Correct. So. And in this way, he is the United Nations, United National Party's only MP or the sole MP entering not with an election win, but through the national list based on party's vote share in the 2020 general elections. Correct. So people are protesting. They started shouting slogans, Ranil go home, as they were shouting earlier, Gota go home. And they are saying that Ranil Wickremesinghe doesn't have the people's mandate. Right. Now, so this is something which you have to keep in mind. Right. I hope it is clear. Now moving to the next news article on the screen. Now, as you can see, uh, China has recently, just hold on. All right. So China has recently started building up a new highway, via Aksai chain. So it's a very important and sensitive issue. The and also poses an imminent danger, on the territory integrity and sovereignty of India. Why? Because China is planning to build another highway through Aksai chain, right? And it would run along the Indian border, connecting Xinjiang province with the Tibet province, right? So Xinjiang in the west and Tibet definitely is at the center, but its border goes far till the tri-junction of the Arunachal Pradesh. So China is planning to build another highway through Aksai Chin, running through Aksai Chin, and it would join Xinjiang with Tibet. Now, and this the name of the national expressway or the highway is G695. So G695 is the name of the national expressway, which will be only the second national highway through disputed region, where China controls 38,000 square kilometers of land claimed by India. Right. Now, this is hinting at Aksai Chin. Now, we all know that after the Indo-China War of 1961, China, captured and in fact claimed, captured 38,000 square kilometer area of the eastern part of Jammu Kashmir, which today they call as Aksai Chin, right? And it is today the land is being claimed by India. It is a disputed area, contested area, correct? Aksai Chin, right? So the border is very close to Ladakh, which is the Union Territory. And if you've been to Pangong Tso Lake, which is there in Ladakh, you would find, the lake is also being is divided between India and China. Correct. So it's very long. It's very large lake, around 70 kilometers in length, and some part of it, is comes under Aksai Chin, which is being controlled by China. However, it is being claimed by India. Right. Now, in this sense, this highway G695 national highway will be the second highway or the national highway running from Ladakh, right? From the disputed territory. Sorry, not Ladakh, my bad, from Aksai Chin, which is a disputed territory. The first highway which was being built by China, running through Aksai Chin was G219, G219 highway in the year 1950s. Right. So the first highway to be running from present Aksai Chin was G219 highway. The second is G695 national highway, which is expected to be completed by 2035. Right? So they may ask you in the examination, what is the name of the national highway which China is planning to build and will run through Aksai Chin? So it is G695 national highway. It will run from Aksai Chin and it would connect Xinjiang, the western province of China, with Tibet, which is an autonomous region, Tibet autonomous region. Right? Now, this highway G695 will run even closer to the LSE as compared to G219. So when you compare G219 with G695, G695 would run very much closer to the LSE or the line of actual control, which runs or divides the boundary between, which forms the boundary between India and China. And if you, as I said, that if you've been to Pangong Tso Lake, LSE is very close. Right? Is likely to broadly run along the course of G219 from Maza in Xinjiang in the north. Then it would enter into the Aksai Chin, heading south along the borders with India. It would form the border between India, Nepal, till Bhutan, and down to Lunze in southern eastern Tibet region across the border from Arunachal Pradesh. So in this sense, it would form the boundary, of the northern boundary of India and China, and it will definitely cut across Aksai Chin and will bring it close to the several disputed areas that have seen in the recent tensions of. You all would be knowing about the Galwan clashes and the areas which were which came, which were the hotspots of the clashes, like your Pangong Tso Lake. There are some finger areas, and again the Depsang Plains, Galwan Valley, hot springs on the LSE. They all are the contested areas, and they were the hotspots during the 2020 Galwan clashes. So the G695 National Highway would run very close to these hotly contested areas. Correct. And in this way, many reports also say that the it would start from the eastern Ladakh down to Doklam, which is again the push button where China was and Indian forces were at a standoff, and it is very close to India, China, Bhutan tri-junction, also called as Chumbi Valley. Right. So very important news article. I hope it is clear. Moving to the next news article on the screen. So very important news article surfaced today in the Hindu, and this talks about the OBC quota in the local body elections. Students, we must understand that the 73rd and the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1992 gives the constitutional legal status to the Panchayati Raj institutions and the urban local bodies or the municipalities. Right. There are some mandatory provisions of this act and some voluntary provisions. Mandatory means compulsory provisions. For example, one third of the seats must be reserved for women candidates. That is a mandatory clause. You may increase beyond one third. For example, the state of Rajasthan has 50% or half of the seats reserved for women candidates. Right. So you can always increase from one third, but minimum one third seats must be reserved for women candidates as a members as well as the chairperson of the Panchayati Raj institutions as well as urban local bodies. Number one. Number two, the seats should also be reserved for SC/STs in proportion of their population in the area, in that particular area, for the reservation of seats for SC/ST in as the members of the PRIs and the municipal bodies. At the same time, their seats are also reserved as a chairpersonship for SC/STs. Right. The second thing. Now, as far as the voluntary clauses of 73rd and 74th Amendment Act 1992 are concerned, the first is the OBC reservation. Now it depends on the on the state government concerned whether to give OBC reservation or not. For example, the government of Rajasthan, state government of Rajasthan, has given 27% reservation for OBC candidates in Panchayati Raj institutions as well as municipal bodies. Getting my point? Now, but this reservation has to be based on, on a test which is being mandated by Supreme Court, and this test is called as triple test. A triple test. That means there are three conditions which has to be fulfilled before you give, a reservation to OBCs in the local body elections. I got my point. And these three tests are being laid down by the judgment of the Supreme Court of the year 2010, which is called as K. Krishnamurthy, Dr. K. Krishnamurthy versus Union of India 2010. Under this judgment, the Supreme Court laid down the triple test formula. They said that the first condition in order to give the OBC reservation is there must be a state backward class commission, an independent commission, which would collect the empirical data. It would do the survey of the OBC population in the state, right? And whatever data that is being collected through the surveys, the door-to-door surveys, has to be made public, right? I mean, has to be made public in the sense it has to be not public, my bad. It has to be submitted into the floor of the Vidhan Sabha or the state assembly, right? So whatever data that is being collected, the empirical data has to be, submitted at the floor of the house to the governor, and the governor would in turn lay down the report, at the floor of the house, the Vidhan Sabha. Now, the third condition is that the reservation, if at all you give to the OBC, that reservation must not exceed 50% ceiling, which was being given by Indira Saumne judgment of the year 1992, right? So these are the three conditions. First, there must be a state backward class commission. Second, it should do the survey of the OBC population in the state. Third, I mean, and the data must be made, laid down on the floor of the house, the Vidhan Sabha. And the third condition, the reservation, whatever reservation you give, must not exceed 50%. Agree? So this is the three test which was being mandated by Supreme Court. In which case, they may ask you, the case is K. Krishnamurthy, Dr. K. Krishnamurthy versus Union of India, 2010. Now, recently in Maharashtra, now definitely we know that a new government has come up, and it has replaced MVA, Mahavikas Aghadi government, which was being led by Uddhav Thackeray. And now the new dispensation is being led by Shinde, right? Now they're saying that Eknath Shinde, they're saying that the previous government, you know, they tried to go ahead with the OBC reservation of the seats without, even before the state backward class commission revealed the data for OBC, and therefore Supreme Court actually put a stay over such kind of reservation which was to be given by the MBA. Correct. However, the present government says, where the deputy chief minister is Devendra Fadnavis, they say that the erstwhile government, didn't have the willpower to give the OBC reservation, right? However, they were not following the triple test, which was being laid down by the Supreme Court in K. Krishnamurthy versus Union of India 2010. Now, Supreme Court recently, I hope you're getting my point. Now, Supreme Court has recently cleared the 27% OBC quota for the Maharashtra local body polls, right? So, and in this way, it is a very, very big development. Supreme Court has cleared 27% OBC quota for Maharashtra local body polls. And now the commission, which gave the report for OBC reservation in the state of Maharashtra, was being led by former Chief Secretary of the state, Jayant Bantia. So it is also called a Jayant Bantia Commission. Very, very important students. They may ask you the question about K. Krishnamurthy versus Union of India 2010. And the second fact or the second takeaway from this article is Jayant Bantia Commission, which recommended 27% OBC reservation in the Maharashtra local body polls. Right. I hope you're getting the things clear. Right. Now, recently, students, you all will be knowing that Madhya Pradesh also, went with the panchayat and the municipality elections. For the first time in the history of Madhya Pradesh, OBC, the seats were being reserved for OBC community in the local body elections, and they followed the triple test laid down by the Supreme Court in K. Krishnamurthy versus Union of India. Getting my point? So they had the state backward class commission. It came up with a report, surveyed the OBC population, and then definitely it was less than 50%. So it fulfilled, satisfied all the conditions laid down by under K. Krishnamurti versus Union of India, and definitely the state of Madhya Pradesh, went ahead with the elections, with the OBC reservation. Getting my point. So, as in this sense, so this is how this news is very, very, very important for all the students preparing for Clat examination, UPSC state SSC examinations, and all the government examinations. So this is how I mentioned here. Indira Savne 50% ceiling, the triple test, independent state commission to explore the OBC population. We should collect the empirical data and ensure that the number of quota seats doesn't cross 50%. Right. Now, in the Constitution, if they ask you that which article talks about the reservation of seats in the local bodies, right? So for panchayats, it is Article 243D, correct? And for municipal bodies, it is Article 243T, Clause 6. I repeat again, Article 243D, Clause 6 talks about the reservation of seats for panchayats, and Article 243T, Clause 6 talks about the reservation of seats for SC, ST in the municipal bodies. So D and T, right? T is for municipal bodies. At the same time, however, for creating a level playing field, reservation may be desirable as mandated by the aforementioned articles, which provide a separate constitutional basis for reservation. And it is different from what is being conceived under Article 15, Clause 4 and 16, Clause 4. Now, Article 15, students, you must be knowing, is prohibition of discrimination on the grounds only of race, religion, caste, sex, and place of birth. Getting my point? So in this way, 15 is different from Article 243D and 243T. Because 243DT talks about the reservation in municipalities. Article 15, Clause 4 talks about reservation in educational institutions. Getting my point? 15 Clause 4 talks about reservations in educational institutions. And 16 Clause 4 talks about reservation in employment, right? You may be knowing that 15 is prohibition of discrimination based on the grounds of race, religion, caste, sex, and place of origin. And it was amended by First Constitutional Amendment Act 1951, which inserted Clause 4 into Article 15, saying that the seats must be reserved in the public institutions in educational institution, right, for SC/STs and the socially and educationally backward classes. Similarly, 16 Clause 4 talks about the reservation of seats for SC/ST and SEBCs in employment opportunities. Getting my point? So my point is to make you understand that Article 243D and 243T, which gives the reservation to SC/STs, women, and if the state may go ahead with OBC reservation in panchayats and municipal bodies respectively. Whereas 15 Clause 4 and 16 Clause 4 give reservation in education and employment. I hope I made the things clear. Moving ahead. Now, this is the chart which I wanted to, draw your attention to. So this is a 5-judge constitution bench, which is which was being headed, right? So 5-judge constitution bench, and this in 2010 came up. The judgment was K. Krishnamurti versus Union of India, and this is the three triple test or the three conditions laid down by the Supreme Court to set up a dedicated commission to conduct empirical inquiry into the nature of backwardness in local bodies, that is the State Backward Class Commission. The second is to specify the proportion of reservations required to be provisioned local body wise, right? And such reservation must not exceed 50%. Right. Now, recently in December 2021, the Apex Court's latest order in Rahul Ramesh Wagh versus State of Maharashtra and others. Very important, students. Take a note of this. December 2021, in Rahul Ramesh Wagh versus State of Maharashtra, the Apex Court made it mandatorily that the principles laid down under K. Krishnamurti versus Union of India 2010 must be followed in letter and spirit. Getting my point? And therefore, they rejected, the OBC reservation which the earlier government was giving, because they said that the triple test or the three conditions which are being mandated under K. Krishnamurthy are not being satisfied by the Mahavikas Aghadi, and therefore Supreme Court of India struck down or stayed, the OBC reservation which was being given by the Mahavikas Aghadi for for conducting the local body elections. Correct. I hope it is clear. That means even without waiting for the empirical report coming from the State Backward Class Commission, the Mahavikas Aghadi government passed an ordinance to amend the Maharashtra Jila Parishad Act and the Panchayat Samiti Act and Maharashtra Village Panchayat Act so as to conduct the local body elections with OBC reservation, but it was being struck down by the Supreme Court of India. I hope it is clear. Moving to the next news article. Now, recently, guys, also there was an judgment because Krishna Rao Gawali versus State of Maharashtra and others, 2021. Now, in this judgment, it was being said, the same things were being said. The court observed that the reservation for OBCs was just a statutory dispensation to be provided by state legislations and is different from the constitutional provisions which mandated a reservation to the SC/ST. Now, this statement means that, as I said, that the 73rd and the 74th Amendment Act of 1992 have mandatory provisions, that means compulsory provisions, and some voluntary provisions. In mandatory provisions, also called as constitutional provisions, the seats must be reserved for SC/ST in proportion to their population in the state and in the area. Getting my point? But in the voluntary provisions, which is voluntary, that means it depends on the will of the state whether they do or not, right? So, so the reservation of OBC is just a statutory dispensation to be provided by the state legislation. That means it is a voluntary provision, and it can be done so only with the passage of an act passed by the state assembly, and it should, fulfill the triple test conditions given under K. Krishnamurthy versus Union of India 2010, and this was being laid down under Vikas Krishna Rao Gawali versus State of Maharashtra 2021. Hope it is clear. So this is again all the things which I just mentioned are being narrated here. Right. So nothing different. Yeah. So moving ahead. Well, the famous case of Muhammad Zubair, who is the co-founder of Alt News and a fact checker. And you all know that he was very much vociferous on the social media platforms like Twitter. There are many tweets posted by him which grabbed the attention of the Uttar Pradesh government, and he was being jailed under various sections of IPC. The Uttar Pradesh police accused Mohammed Zubair of hurting religious sentiments and religious feelings through his Twitter posts. And the case went to Supreme Court. Now, Supreme Court, after exploring many nuances of the case, they gave him bail order. They passed the bail order. That means they set him free, on bail. Now, the moment he was being set free on bail, again a new FIR was being slashed on him by Uttar Pradesh police. Then again, he used to be in the jail. Then again, Supreme Court used to give the bail order, and again the new FIR would be registered. So multiple FIRs and FIRs were being registered against Mohammed Zubair to make sure that he remains in the custody, he remains in the jail, and this is what is something called as jail jurisprudence, being practiced by the executive. Right? So in this way, executive trying to surpass or overpower the domain of the judiciary by issuing multiple FIRs, so that the bail which is being issued by the Supreme Court goes in vain or becomes null and void. Now, it was a direct assault on the freedom of speech and expression. Definitely, I agree that Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A talks about the freedom of speech and expression, and every person is free to express his or her opinion on any platform required. But definitely, it also has restrictions, reasonable restrictions of national security, integrity, public order, decency, morality, and also the friendly relations with the foreign nations. If any tweet or any social media message disturbs the public harmony, then definitely it is being clamped down by the central government. But in this case, recently the Supreme Court said, and in fact they said that the power of arrest is different from power to arrest. Getting a point? So they said that the power of arrest is different from power to arrest. The power of arrest must be used sparingly, must be used in a very limited sense. So finally, Mohammad Zubair is walking out freely on the jail, Tihar jail, and he has got an interim bail in all 6 FIRs registered in Uttar Pradesh. And the court, the apex court, also said that due to the overlapping of charges, the court clubs all the FIRs from Uttar Pradesh and transfers them to Delhi. And the Zubair cannot be barred from tweeting. That means it is his right. He can tweet as far as it doesn't disturb the public order and the national integrity sovereignty. And he may approach the Delhi High Court to quash any present or future cases registered on the same issue. That means if a new affair is again slashed against him, then he has every right to approach the Delhi High Court to quash any present or future cases registered on the same issue. Right. So, in this sense, the court said that uh, you know the existence of the power to arrest must be distinguished from the exercise of the power of arrest, and the exercise of the power of arrest must be used sparingly. And this vicious circle of filing multiple FIRs against an accused person, so as to make him always, to be there, to make him, to force him into the gallows or into the jail, doesn't is not justice. And in fact, the judge of Supreme Court, Justice Chandrachud, he said that how can we tell a journalist not to write? You know, because if in a country, if a political dissent is also being considered as a restriction of Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause A, or freedom of speech and expression, then there is no point of having this fundamental right. Getting my point? So the court said that how can we tell a journalist not to write? How can we tell him he should not utter a word? If he does something wrong, he is answerable to the law. We cannot stop a citizen from using his voice, right? So in this way, freedom of speech and expression is a fundamental right as long as it doesn't hurt or endangers national integrity, sovereignty, public order, morality, decency of the society. In fact, the advocate Brinda Grover for Mr. Zubair said that Uttar Pradesh has had weaponized the criminal law to wreak vengeance on a journalist for debunking false information, and he had been embroiled in one criminal case after the other for exposing hate speech. So, in this way, such jail jurisprudence, so as to ensure that the accused remains in continued custody, is actually, for fails all the I mean, it actually is the danger to the constitutionalism of the country, and probably it may lead to the death of democracy. So in this way, the fairness to the petitioner would require the entirety of the investigation to be clubbed. That means the apex court is saying that all the FIRs, will be clubbed together and handled by one and the same agency. And FIRs require a consolidated investigation and not a piecemeal one by one or one by a diverse set of law enforcement agencies. Getting my point? So that in this sense that all the multiple FIRs that have been filed against Zubair uh, must be must have a consolidated investigation. So in this way, you can see on the pictures Zubair walking free uh, out of the Tihar jail. Very important issue, and I hope there may be a question asked on the same. Moving to the next news article on the screen. Now, recently, students, we know that a new government a new dispensation has come into the state of Maharashtra, and the members of the Shiv Sena, which was earlier being headed by Uddhav Thackeray, a faction of that split from the original Shiv Sena, you know, and now they are now they have claimed to form a government. Guys, we all know about anti-defection law, which is to prevent any defections. Defection means a member of a political party who contested the elections in the ticket on the ticket of any particular political party, but after the elections, if he leaves his parent political party and joins any other party, for many reasons, then that would be barred by the law. That would be prohibited, by the law. And the law in this is anti-defection law, which is also being inserted through 52nd Amendment Act 1985 in the 10th schedule of the Constitution. Now, this amendment was also being later, I mean, the 10th schedule or the anti-defection law was later being amended, where one paragraph under the 10th schedule, which is paragraph 3, was being removed. And this amendment was 91st Constitutional Amendment Act 2003. Now, 91st Amendment Act 2003 said that, because paragraph 3 was being removed, and paragraph 3 said that the disqualification does not apply because you know that those who have defected from the political party would be disqualified from the house. Their membership would be, or would be demolished, and they would be disqualified from the house by the speaker of the house, right? And the paragraph 3 of 10 schedule said that the disqualification does not apply if a political party has split and no fewer than one third of the members of the original party form a new faction. That means earlier the provision was one third. For example, there are 30 members in a political party A. Out of 30, if 10 members, 10 is one third of 30, right? So 10 members leave their original parent party and join some possibly other party or form a new party, that is allowed. That is a valid defense under the anti-defection law. But this has been made more stringent after 91st Amendment Act 2003, saying that that one third clause would now become two-third clause. Getting? So one third is 33.33%, right? Two third is 66.66%. Getting my point? So one third has been made more stringent to two third, right? So in our case, if let's say there are 30 members in party A, now if 100 would leave the party, it would amount to defection. It should be minimum two-third, and two-third of 30 is 20, right? So minimum 20 members out of 30, let's say, if they're leaving their parent political party, then they would get a protection from the anti-defection law, number one. Number two, they should form a new political party. I mean, the members who have left their have split from their parent political party have to form a new faction. That means and they have to name a new political party. But in this case, Eknath Shinde, the members definitely they were two-third and they split from the parent or the original Shiv Sena political party. but they didn't form a new political party. Getting my point? They're still carrying the same name, which is not allowed under anti-defection law. And therefore, Supreme Court Justice, the Chief Justice of India, Ramana, he he asked if Eknath Shinde factions dissent amounts to split, because a split from the original political party without a subsequent merger with another party. So either there are two conditions: either you merge with a a new political party, I getting a point, in order to form the government, or you form altogether new faction. Getting, so they have not formed a new faction, and or formation of a new faction is no longer a defense from disqualification under 10th schedule. Now, Mr. Shinde's faction has so far neither merged, so they have neither merged with another party, getting a point, nor formed a new party. They claim to be the real Shiv Sena, and that is the reason why Supreme Court has is trying to explore that if Eknath Shinde's faction dissent amounts to split. The court, for the time being, asked the Maharashtra Assembly Speaker to maintain the status quo on the disqualification proceedings against the MLAs of both the Shinde and Thackeray factions. So, in this way, very important news article, and in this we have tried to understand about 10th schedule, anti-defection law, who disqualifies the members. The fourth thing we understood is the 91st Amendment Act 2003, which removed paragraph 3 of the 10th schedule and how it made much more stringent. Now, what are the conditions? You have to form a new faction and plus, or you have to merge, do a merger, but neither happened in Eknath Shinde's case. They claim their party to be the original or the real Shiv Sena, and that is the reason why Supreme Court is asked, trying to explore the case. I hope it's clear. Moving to the next news article, students. Well, students, you all know about the heat wave, or I would say heat apocalypse, which is engulfing the Western European nations. You would be surprised to learn that countries like France, the southern France, are witnessing temperatures hitting 47 degrees centigrade. I mean, it would come to as a surprise to many students that how come cold European countries are, facing such heat waves, and how they are, witnessing temperatures hitting 46, 47 degrees centigrades. In United Kingdom, UK, the temperature is crossing 40 degrees. It's somewhere around 42, 41. And for the first time in the history, British government has issued a red alert because of the prevailing heat conditions. So many Western European countries like Portugal, Spain, France, Germany, UK, they all are, witnessing and under the heat wave conditions, also called as heat apocalypse. The heat waves, guys, are not just is not just limited to the present Europe, but it is also stretching to United States. Although the phenomenon are different. Now, this article explores the reasons behind this heat apocalypse, and how it can be controlled and what are the measures that are being taken up. Well, the image that you see on the screen is of the forest fires, right? The wildfires. Now, these wildfires have been seen, in many places in Spain and France, which we also discussed in our previous DNA sessions. Now, this place is Pumarejo de Tera near Zamora in northern Spain. You see people, the firefighters extinguishing the forest fires. It has led to huge biodiversity loss. Many people, millions of people have displaced, they have been evacuated, many have died, and it is a threat to the biosphere, biodiversity. Right. Now, the impending reason which is being said is definitely the climate change. The climate change, right, is the major reason behind the heat-related deaths, the ringing. Now, moving ahead, the temperatures which I've already mentioned and the countries witnessing the temperature somewhere in the range of 42 to 46 degree centigrades. Right. Moving ahead, now Italy again is also reeling under drought. So there are drought and the heat conditions. Now there is a river basin in Italy called as Po River Basin, and this is something which can be asked by the examiner. Very important. They may ask you in the UPSC, State Public Service Commissions, Clat examinations, and other government exams. Where is Po River Basin located? So you must be very clear that Po River Basin is there in Italy, and very importantly, it is called as one of Europe's food bowls. Food bowls because of the Po River, which passes through Italy, and it forming a basin where there's a fertile land and it is favorable for agriculture production and all the harvest, right? So therefore, it is also called as one of the Europe's food bowls, right? And the Po River Basin in Italy has not received rains in the past 200 days, almost 6 to 7 months. Italy, the Po River Basin has not received rainfall. It is severe drought conditions which are being seen in Italy, and across the Atlantic, the temperatures hitting 43 degrees centigrades in some regions, right? Now, guys, we know that the climate change is a major reason behind these heat waves, and we know that the global temperatures, the global warming, the global temperatures have already risen by more than 1 degree centigrade, and I mean, many studies in UK, in fact, have had shown that a 1 degree rise in temperature, you know, mark my words, 1 degree rise in temperature raises the probability of the country witnessing 40 degrees centigrade by 10 times. Getting my point? That means if there is a 1 degree centigrade rise in the average temperature of the planet, it would increase the frequency of temperature hitting greater than 40 degrees centigrade by 10 times. Right. Number one. Number two, the deviation in the temperature above the normal in Antarctica, which is the southern polar region of our planet, is as much as 15 degrees. So the temperature deviation in the southern polar region of Antarctica is as much as 15 degrees, which is a very big cause of worry. Second, the northern pole, right, the Arctic Circle, is also witnessing the temperature deviation more than 3 degrees centigrade. Right? And these all have induced changes in the old wind patterns. Right? And these changes, have turned the Western Europe into what has been described as heat dome. In the coming slides, we'll understand what is heat dome. Right? And a low pressure area has been created around France, Spain, Portugal, that begin to attract the hot air from northern Africa. Getting the point? So there is a so so there is always a system of pressure equilibrium. That means the wind moves from high pressure area to low pressure area so as to maintain the pressure equilibrium. Right. For example, if you connect two gas cylinders, one is, let's say, completely full, and the other is completely empty, and you connect it by a tube, what will happen? The high pressure area, the completely full cylinder, the high pressure area, air would move from the high pressure area to the low pressure area to maintain the pressure equilibrium, right? And it moves till the pressure is equated. I mean, there is a pressure equilibrium, right? In this sense, the air moves from the high pressure area to the low pressure area, right? Now, because of this reason, the deviations in the Antarctica temperature and the Arctic northern pole, the Europe, especially the Portugal, Spain, and France, have become heat dome. That means a low pressure area, and a high pressure area coming from northern Africa. Bringing the hot air is being trapped into this heat dome, resulting in the heat waves. Correct. Did you find? Now, in the case of United States, so this is about Europe. If I talk about United States, the record temperatures are being linked to changes in the jet stream. Now, students, we must understand what is jet stream. A jet stream is a narrow band of westerly air currents, right? Narrow band of westerly air currents that circulates several kilometers above the Earth. That means they flow at a very higher altitude above the Earth, right? While a conventional strong jet stream would bring cooler air from the northern Atlantic, right? So normally the strong jet stream, which flows very high from the mean sea level, brings the cooler air from northern Atlantic to United States. But in the recent years, because of the climate change and the growing industrialization, the jet stream has weakened. Getting my point. So the jet stream it has weakened and it has split into two parts, leading to intense and more frequent heat waves over the parts of American continent. Right. So the cool breeze which or the cool air which was being brought by the western the jet stream is now because of the climate change is being split into two, right? And this is the reason why it is bringing in for the heat waves over the parts of the American continent. This is the reason why America is also witnessing the heat waves now. Europe has started taking up the actions. They are taking actions on for climate mitigation measures. They have adopted. But Texas, which is the stronghold of the Republican Party, happened to be the extreme weather hotspot. And in fact, the politicians there in Texas are asking the people to pray. So they're not taking any actions, the climate mitigation measures. Instead, they're asking the people to pray, right? So it's the role of the fossil fuels is very important reason in the triggering of the extreme weather, right? So they have to work out to reduce the fossil fuels. Now, on the other hand, we know that after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Europe has cut off the Russian gas supply into the continent, and even US has also lessened its dependency, right? It's not importing from Russia. And in this sense, the over reliance on the fossil fuel would be but natural. Getting my point? So, in these circumstances, we have the oil crisis. The prices are shooting this, the ceiling, and there is huge, and on top of it there are heat waves. So it's a very bad situation we are into. And with the frequency and duration of the heat wave rising this summer, the Europe's energy requirements have also shot up at just the wrong time. And in the midst of rising fuel costs caused by a ban on Russian gas that European politicians imposed that in response to the Ukrainian invasion, right? So in this sense, they would be now more, they would rely more on the domestic coal and the fossil fuel. Right? So this is the article which I want to have your attention on. Uh, so this is I have narrated in statements. Right? Now this is how the heat dome works. Now see here, the heat wave originated from a sprawling area of high pressure over Western Europe, also known as heat dome. So the heat wave originated from a sprawling area of high pressure over Western Europe, also known as heat dome. The heat dome ballooned unusually far north because of a low pressure area system developing in the west of Portugal, and whose circulation pumped in hot air from the northern Africa. Right, the hot air is being pumped from the northern Africa because of this heat dome. Getting my point. So as you can see on the screen, and because of this, the high pressure, which acts as a lid on the atmosphere, it's being brought down. Hot air tries to escape the lid, causes it to sink. So this is the lid. This is the lid, right? It's causing it to sink. And air is forced to warm even more as it sinks, right? So hot air coming from the northern Africa, it's being trapped here in the heat dome. The high pressure and intense low pressure area in the Portugal is bringing the hot air, and this is acting as a lid, bringing the hot air down, increasing the temperature, resulting in the heat waves. And this is a report. The source is CNN weather. And this is how it is working. The European heat wave this week and the jet streams. Right. This is how the jet streams are being divided into two. Right. Now, moving ahead, well, the good news, cheetahs, which are the fastest mammal on Earth, on planet, there are plans to bring them back in India. Well, guys, in 1952, the government declared cheetah as extinct. It was being, and there are various reasons behind this. It was being hunted for royal treasure as a sign of prosperity and pride, and cheetah became extinct in India in the year 1952. Now, for the first time, the government has cleared the first batch from the southern Africa, which is the second, which is a native place of cheetahs, to the Kuno National Park in Madhya Pradesh. They may ask you that the cheetahs are being translocated from South Africa to which national park in India? So it is Kuno National Park. Very, very, very important. Strongly expect a question on this. Now, now they are following. The government is saying that we are following the IUCN guidelines, which says that there must be forest site quality, appropriate forest site quality. The prey density should be appropriate, and the current carrying capacity for a large mammal like cheetah, should be there. Uh, in this sense, they would be sent for 1 year trial, and earlier the Supreme Court lifted a stay on the original proposal to introduce the African cheetahs from Namibia into Indian habitat on an experimental basis, because they said that the court said that they would come into conflict with the plan for bringing lions into the same sanctuary. That in the same sanctuary they were to bring lions, right? So therefore, Supreme Court rejected this earlier, and also they said that there are different climatic conditions in India, and they may not survive, and it may also pose danger to the other species. And in ways, the reintroduction plans have been okayed by the Supreme Court, in the recent past, and now India is all set to bring the world's fastest animal in our country at Kuno National Park. They would be habitated, and the government has planned to bring them before August 15. So when the country would be celebrating independence this year, August 15, we would also see cheetahs jumping and running in Kuno National Park, Madhya Pradesh, the world's fastest animal. So here you can see the differences between African cheetah and the Asiatic cheetah. So this is how they differ from each other. You see, Asiatic cheetah, now extinct from India since 1952. And if I talk about the technical details and compare African cheetah with Asiatic cheetah, you will come to know that IUCN status for African cheetah is vulnerable, but Asiatic cheetah is critically endangered. My point. It is more dangerous. As far as CITES status, which is the prohibition on the trade of the endangered species, it comes into Appendix 1 is same in for Asiatic cheetah also. Distribution is around 6,500, 7,000 African cheetahs present in the wild, whereas Asiatic cheetahs are just 40 to 50 found only in Iran, because India is already gone, extinct. Physical characteristics, well, African cheetahs are bigger in size as compared to Asiatic cheetah. You can see they are also heighted and bigger in size. Whereas Asiatic cheetahs are smaller and paler than African cheetah and has more fur. You can see they have more fur, as compared to African cheetah, a smaller head and a longer neck. So small head and a longer neck. Usually have red eyes and they have a more cat-like appearance. You see here, red eyes and more cat-like appearance as compared to the African cheetah. Right. So this is how they are being differentiated. Guys, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the session, and press the like button for more such updates. Stay tuned for for all the live streaming of the daily news analysis sessions from the ClatPrep headquarters. Do like, subscribe, and press the bell icon for regular updates. Any question that comes to your mind are welcome. You can always put your question in the comment box down below. Wish you all the best. Your educator Prithviraj Singh signing off. Good day. Goodbye. God bless you.